kind of, well, what are we doing? Are we just booking music for a show? This doesn't make sense. So we reevaluated what we're trying to do, and so we just want solid music everywhere. We want a good time, and we know that the brand has kind of taken a few steps back. So instead of trying to go out there and promote that you have to come to this and get as many people as we want, we're focusing on a really good time for the people that do come.
Well, in a sense, too, because even towns get branded, because like Austin is, the music capital, and
Exactly.
so even towns and places like that.
Like Dish, Texas. Okay, so let's go back a little bit to this Coca-Cola story. The interesting thing is that in the first few weeks, the new Coke was doing really well. It was received really well across the country. Sales were up 8%. However, the big test remained in the Southeast, where Coke was just more than a drink. Coke was a slang word for colas or any type of drink like that in the South. And remember that focus group I talked about earlier, 10 to 12%? Well, that minority, they actually became very vocal in opposition to the brand. Talk show hosts, comedians, they were making fun of it. The Coke ads were being booed at scoreboards in the Houston Astrodome. And get this, Fidel Castro, a longtime Coke drinker, contributed to the backlash. He was called the new Coke a sign of the American capitalist decadence. And the company headquarters in Atlanta received so many angry calls and letters to their hotline, and a psychiatrist that they hired to listen into the calls said that it sounded as if the people were discussing the death of a family member. And this is amazing. Who would have thought a simple product like this could have had such a big impact on people's life? But, I guess that speaks to the fact that a good brand is not just a product or service, but it's representative of culture. So could you talk a little bit about people's emotional attachment to brands and how this influenced the way it's advertised?
Well, that kind of steps in, Cody, if you want to add into this, because he may not be a brand expert per se, but he really does understand how it works. I mean, this guy has one heck of a brand, I would say. I mean, I'm not kidding. This guy is landing gigs left and right. I don't even know how he's doing it. But anyway, not to jump off subject. It's about the idea of trust. It's when you meet somebody and you either store their name or their face. You're like, that was a really nice person. It's the same thing when you meet a company. If you would hope that they have a solid identity that they can store, and they're gonna, every experience that they have with you, they're gonna kind of store it in their data bank and say, that's their brand. This is how much I trust them. This is the experience that I have with this company, or this individual, or depends on the service. But it's just about that. You want them to fall in love, and you want to continue to deliver like Apple does. They always come out with a top-notch product, and then they keep stepping it up all the time. But at the same time, they're not just throwing it in an ugly box. They're taking care of the whole spectrum of things. They want things to be beautiful and top-notch.
Oh yeah, and people are sold on that. Like Apple's a great case where people are sold on the brand. They will buy a mouse that is horribly functional, that looks beautiful and has the Apple logo on it before they go out and buy the mouse that they probably should be buying that's functionally superior and half the cost. But people want that, and they'll spend twice as much on a backpack that has the Apple logo on it before they buy.
Yeah, because Apple is cool. That's the whole idea.
Right. Oh yeah, and the fanboys love that stuff.
Yeah.
So to wrap up this whole story about Coke, less than 6 months after they introduced new Coke, they rolled it back. The complaints from the minority were too much. And the interesting thing that I find about this story is that through all the studies, through all the focus groups, everything comes up to blind taste test. The new Coke beat the old Coke. And when people found out that they were actually rated the new Coke higher than the old Coke, they were upset. So it wasn't at all about the quality of the product. It's just about the whole idea behind the product. So I just found that very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's there's science, of course, that shows if you're sitting in a room of one color versus a room of another, it can completely change your emotional state of mind. And I think that's the same thing with a brand. Like if you think of a brand as kind of like an essence, like a color or a sound or some sort of frequency or whatever. But I mean, it's really like that. It does have a lot to do with the way that you take into the product that they have to offer. Like if you can taste one steak from one place, and then if they're like, this is the best steak place in the world, try it. Oh my gosh, well, some people fall for it, others don't, and that's just the name of the game, I think. So,
one thing that I've noticed, getting back to this whole idea of having a small business, is that the United States and the economy was based on these small businesses a few decades ago, and everyone had a share of the wealth. Everyone owned some type of small businesses, but in recent years, you've been having those businesses coalescing into a big corporation, and then you have trade internationally and legal trade. Like this is one interesting story. In the U.S., there used to be lots of manufacturers of wire hangers, and what China did is that they actually started to dump wire hangers on the market here less than the cost it took to produce them. So they were making a loss. But the whole idea was we're going to drive these companies out of business. So in a few years, we control the market share. And a lot of these practices go on and really affect businesses. So how hard do you find it to interact in this modern community?
In our industry, the software development industry, there was a huge outsourcing effort by companies 5-10 years ago to places like India and China, and you know we don't really necessarily see this as competition, because a lot of the work that comes out of there is the way that the American companies operate with them. There's some cultural differences and some communication differences, and the way that the business works back and forth isn't always the best. Now the price is going to be a lot cheaper, but you know that's I guess that's one part. Now for us, we really haven't. We don't look for clients that are, you know, if we're going to go up against, if they're looking at outsourcing to another country for cheaper rates, then we usually, you know, we end the talk right there normally, just because, you know, they're looking at something different.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the whole what's the quality, speed, and what's the other cost? Pick two. I mean, that's a really good way to look at it. I think that a lot of stuff that's happened with that, like you're saying, is the fact that they're like, oh, it's cheaper, but then you look at the product you get in return, and so it's, you know, I really think there's two types of buyers. There's the ones that want to buy the cheapest possible thing that they can get because they don't want to spend the money on it, and then there's other people who want to buy the nicest thing, then they know they're going to get their money for it, and they look at it as an investment. That's really what I think is the purchase and some of the main purchasing styles. So.
And one thing about setting up a business. Let's say you have an idea, you want to set up your business in today's society, you don't have all the funding you need to set up your business. You have a few options available: private financing or get a loan from a bank. For a small business, which one do you recommend and why?
Well, for our businesses, the capital to really go out and do things, we don't necessarily need. I mean, a laptop, you know, some of the greatest applications have been written on in a coffee shop. So for us, for Robbie and I, our businesses, looking at large amount of capital for investors, don't really need that right now. It's kind of one of those, you know, I guess if one of our applications took off and in 2 weeks we've got over 1.5 million users, 4 million users, and it goes international, then yeah, at that point we can start looking at that kind of stuff. But right now we're just keeping our head down, making sure we get great products out there and provide good services.
But I know there's a lot of options that people have. You're talking about having investors and things like that.
Yeah, versus having a loan from the bank.
Well, I mean, I think it's really just a matter of opinion. I wouldn't in no way go in and say that I know a whole bunch about this. That's where Travis comes in. he keeps us afloat. But I think a lot of it has to do with what you're trying to actually do in the first place. You know, you may need an angel investor. Maybe you don't need $1 million and you need $5,000. In that case, of course, you definitely want to go to a bank. And I would highly suggest a local bank and getting to know them and things like that. That way you're not, you know, dealing with some huge corporate franchise. You know, you're actually dealing with somebody who cares about the community and wants to help. And I mean, I think that's, you know, in a lot of ways, that's kind of what's taking place. And hope you got some good credit.
And let's talk a little bit about the legality of setting up a business. You have a lot of different options when you're actually registering the business, from a corporation to a limited liability company. Can you talk a little bit about what personal responsibility is on the owner of the business when they set up their business?
Well, our company's Downtown Cartel, and we're out of Nicaragua. We do our main business lines are importing and exporting. I'll just leave it at that. No, I'm kidding. It's software development. We went the LLC route mainly from we got the advice from our lawyer and a accountant, and so on that kind of stuff, I'm not really the business guy in our group, so I can't answer much about that. Maybe Robbie can. I know they've got a partnership. We've got a partnership as well, and we just wanted to make sure that everybody had equal stake in the business.
Hire a lawyer and have a really good tax guy. I was absolutely, if I knew the name of the company, I would mention it with our local CPA. But I mean, if a really good tax person and, you know, you doing your research and studying up, you can really kind of see which will work best for you, like going the LLC route or INC. I mean, there's so many different things, and a lot of times you may not even know the difference. But then, if you talk with your some sort of accountant or your lawyer, they're going to really lead you in the right direction. So you can do as much research as you want, but at the end of the day, you want them to make that decision, I think.
Right. This is kind of taking it back to the creative space, but I just noticed because you were both saying, well, we're not experts in this. So actually with this kind of cooperative small business starting, are you each bringing to the table too your specialties? And so you get all of that as well, all these different people with these specialties?
Definitely. We've got 13 guys up there that are tremendously talented in all kinds of stuff. And so having them, 15 feet away is an amazing.
Yeah, not just the creative, but like for the business.
For the business,
aspect,
yeah.
Financial, that's
And
right.
I'm lucky because one of my business partners happens to own the restaurant beneath us with his wife, and so I'm awesome. Cool, because there's set things. I'm not the person who makes financial decisions. I'm the creative director. I'm not anything. And so we all know, like, I have my roles, and I'm not the person to install a printer. You don't want me to do that.
No.
But I can tell you how to make the printer look more pretty. I mean, I can do that. It's not a problem.
And use the hell out of it.
Yes, indeed.
So,
Well, I guess that goes back to what you were saying earlier. It's kind of like an office where you have different people with different specialties.
Sure.
But for the boss.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No boss. It's very flat structured up there.
I mean, from a design perspective, the entire industry actually right now is transitioning to where it's, instead of these huge corporations handling all these, major accounts, it's breaking down into focused, shops that are like, this is the company that does a really good job of this, and stuff like
super specializing. Yeah.
Yeah, and so and then that honestly, what we found out, Cody and Downtown Cartel and Always Creative, it's absolutely the sister company of Downtown Cartel. We didn't plan it to form that way, but now we're landing projects because we do all the front end, the branding, the design, and all that kind of stuff, and a lot of the front end coding, and then they're in the background handling the huge application side of things. So we can take a company from A to Z in the same shop, and then the company doesn't have to deal with multiple companies. They're dealing with probably Cody and I. So we'll tell them how cool they are and all that stuff. So
Make them feel good and make them feel like their money's
but
being
it's
well spent.
it's actually real. It's not a sales pitch. We love our clients. They're all so cool.
Sure.
That's really good. So, talk a little bit, Cody, Robbie, about your future plans, like your vision for your companies and how you want that vision to interact with the Bryan College Station community.
For my company, I don't want us to grow too quickly or forced. I want it to come naturally. I want us to find the right talent and what feels good at the right time, and say we might meet somebody tomorrow that's the perfect addition to our team that fits in a way we never thought possible, and bring them in and kind of grow naturally. I mean, in 5 years, I asked Robbie yesterday. I think we were at lunch. I asked Robbie, where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you see yourself? And I had no idea where I could see myself in 5 years. Hopefully, still in business. But I really hope that in 5 years, we could have 20 people in our company, or 30 or 100. I mean, with internet technology, you never know. You could have 6,000 in 6 months. You never know how things are going to grow.
And, I think I read something once. There's a designer, Art Chantry. He said you should demand creative license, respect, and fair pay. And I think really, at the end of the day, if people say that company is really good, they're worth what they charge, and you'll have a good time working with them. We can stay the same size or get bigger. I don't really care. But I just want to wake up in the morning and continue to feel really, really happy to own my own business.
So that's most important to you than your reputation and your reputation
Yeah.
of your services.
Yeah, it's like that. But the other day we actually had a client, give us some feedback and say, the website you built, yada yada months ago, it actually, worked out really well, and just want to let you guys know it's working well for us. And that right there is exactly why I'm in the business I'm in, because it's like, that's the client out of nowhere saying, hey, thanks for being in business and being there, doing the services for our company that you do. That's what I'm living for. So if I make less money, that would kind of suck, but I'd like a little more. But
And you're listening to Bias Transmission on KOS 89.1 FM. Robbie, Cody, it was a great show. But before I let you go, 2 things from you. Contact information, and give me one message to leave before listening.
Okay, Robbie Fitzhenry. It's spelled Roby, which is kind of, I know, wrong. You can email me at roby@wearealways.com. And that's our website. Needs an overhaul. Sorry. And I guess other than that, I think a slogan that I live by is discipline, not desire, determines destiny. So you can, exactly what we said, you can talk and wish all you want, but it's when you actually do is when you actually get. So.
And Cody?
Yeah, you can get a hold of me. It's Cody at downtowncartel.com, spelled CODY, and then downtowncartel.com. Geez, my message is, I guess, be fair, be honest, be open, be transparent, and always do your best.
Well, thank you very much, Cody and Robbie, for joining us today on Bias Transmissions. It was certainly very informative for me, and I hope for our listeners as well. Bias Transmissions on KOS is sponsored in part by Revolution Cafe and Bar in downtown Bryan, offering an eclectic listening room for live music. Revolution Cafe and Bar hosts open mic every Wednesday and mic check for poetry open mic every Sunday. You can listen to the newest bands and singer-songwriters in the Brazos Valley while enjoying a Revolution Latte, homemade sangria, a cold beer, or a cocktail from Revolution's full bar. Revolution Cafe and Bar is located at 211B South Main Street in Carnegie Alley. Hours of operation are 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. Tuesdays to Saturday and 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. on Sundays. They can be reached at 979-823-4044 or online at www.myspace.com/Revolution Cafe and Bar. And before I turn over to Danny, who's going to tell us a little bit about our next week's show, I just want to let you know that we, your hosts of Bias Transmissions, will be at Revolution Cafe and Bar this and every Wednesday after the show, so you're welcome to join us. And you've been listening to Bias Transmission on KOS, and I'll take you over to Danny, who'll tell you about next week's show.
Yeah, next week we'll have members of the Revolution Slam Poetry team on Bias Transmission. The team is going to the Upper Midwest in August for the Nationals. In addition to finding out more about the team and slam poetry, team members will recite some of their poems. Join us next Wednesday. It should be an interesting, lively, and fun time.